In the boundless expanse of space, the warship Tempest moved with silent grace toward Earth. Commander Ryland Creed, a man carved from years of interstellar conflict, stood resolute on the bridge, his eyes, sharp and unyielding, fixed on the planet that had been his home. It had been a long time since he had walked its surface, but duty had called him back in the most urgent of terms. This mission, however, was unlike any he had faced before. Reports had come in of an alien species deploying colossal biomechanical war beasts onto Earth, causing untold devastation. Ryland's features were etched with determination, his jaw set firmly as he addressed his crew. "Prepare for descent. We need to assess the situation on the ground immediately." His voice carried the weight of command, and his crew, seasoned veterans all, responded with a silent, collective nod. Their faces, though hardened by countless battles, reflected a mix of resolve and the grim understanding of the task ahead. The descent through Earth's atmosphere was a turbulent one, the Tempest shaking as it broke through the clouds. Below, the landscape unfolded in a tapestry of destruction. Cities lay in ruins, their skeletal remains shrouded in smoke. Among the debris, the monstrous silhouettes of the war beasts were unmistakable. These creatures, towering amalgamations of metal and flesh, moved with an almost mechanical precision, tearing through the remnants of human civilization with ruthless efficiency. As the Tempest landed on the outskirts of what was once New Chicago, the crew disembarked with weapons at the ready. Ryland led the way, his senses heightened as he scanned the area for any signs of life. The silence was oppressive, broken only by the distant sounds of destruction. Suddenly, a massive shadow loomed over them. One of the war beasts, a grotesque fusion of organic and synthetic components, emerged from the ruins. "Everyone take cover!" Ryland shouted, diving behind a crumbling wall as the beast let out a bone-chilling roar, its eyes glowing with a sinister light, fixed on the human intruders. The ground shook as it charged, its colossal limbs crushing everything in its path with ease. Peeking out from his cover, Ryland felt his heart race. "We need to take that thing down now!" He raised his plasma rifle, aiming for the creature's massive form. The weapon discharged with a high-pitched whine, sending a beam of energy toward the beast. The shot struck its armored hide, but it barely registered the impact. It turned its gaze toward Ryland, and for a fleeting moment their eyes locked. In that instant, Ryland saw something unexpected in the creature's gaze: fear. The crew opened fire, their combined efforts focused on bringing the beast down. The air was thick with the acrid smell of burning metal and the deafening noise of energy weapons. Despite their efforts, the creature advanced, undeterred by their attacks. As it closed in, a sudden burst of energy struck it from the side, sending it staggering. Ryland turned to see a figure emerging from the shadows, clad in alien armor and wielding an unfamiliar weapon. "I'm Zarek," the figure said, its voice resonating through a helmet that concealed its features. "I'm here to help." Ryland hesitated, his instincts wary. "Why should we trust you?" Zarek raised his weapon, its design sleek and lethal. "Because if we don't work together, none of us will survive." Ryland's eyes narrowed as he considered the alien's words. Then, with a nod, he made his decision. "All right, Zarek. What's your plan?" Zarek pointed toward the beast, now regaining its balance. "These war beasts have a neural nexus located in their chest. It's their weak point. We need to expose it and destroy it." Working together, Ryland and Zarek coordinated their attacks, aiming to create an opening in the creature's defenses. As the battle raged on, they managed to expose the vulnerable nexus. With a final, coordinated strike, they targeted the weak spot, and the beast let out a final, agonized roar before collapsing in a heap of twisted metal and flesh. As the dust settled, Ryland turned to Zarek, his breathing heavy. "We couldn't have done that without you." Zarek removed his helmet, revealing a face that was both alien and eerily human. "There are more of these beasts, and if we don't stop them, your planet will fall." Ryland extended a hand. "Then let's make sure that doesn't happen." With the alliance forged between Ryland and Zarek, a new chapter in the battle for Earth began. The crew of the Tempest, now bolstered by their alien ally, prepared for the fight of their lives. The war beasts were formidable, but united, they stood a chance to save their world from annihilation. The ruins of New Chicago stretched out before them, a grim testament to the ferocity of the war beasts. Rylan, his mind still reeling from the recent battle, led his team through the crumbling streets. Every step they took echoed the destruction that had befallen the city. Smoke and dust filled the air, mingling with the acrid scent of burning metal and scorched earth. Amidst the debris, the scattered remains of once thriving neighborhoods painted a picture of desolation. As they advanced cautiously, the team's vigilance was palpable. The eerie silence was intermittently broken by distant crashes and the haunting wails of the remaining war beasts. Each sound set them on edge, reminding them that the danger was far from over. Rylan motioned for a halt, his sharp eyes scanning the horizon for any signs of movement. Out of the haze, a massive silhouette appeared, moving with an unnatural mechanical grace. The war beast's form was a grotesque blend of sinew and metal, its limbs a tangled web of cables and flesh. Its eyes, glowing with a cold blue light, surveyed the ruins with a predatory hunger. Rylan's hand tightened around his plasma rifle, his pulse quickening as the beast drew nearer. "Positions!" Rylan barked, his voice cutting through the tension. His team dispersed, taking cover behind the remnants of vehicles and shattered buildings. They watched in tense silence as the beast lumbered closer, each step it took causing the ground to tremble. Rylan's mind raced, formulating a plan. They had to find a way to take this monster down, but brute force alone wouldn't suffice. He turned to Zarek, who stood beside him, weapon at the ready. "We need to hit its neural nexus. Can you create a distraction?" Zarek nodded, his expression grim. "I'll draw its attention. Be ready to strike when you see an opening." With that, Zarek stepped out from cover, his alien weapon blazing to life. Bright, searing bolts of energy flew from the barrel, striking the beast's armored hide. The creature let out a thunderous roar, its gaze snapping toward Zarek. It charged, massive limbs smashing through the wreckage as it pursued its new target. Seizing the opportunity, Rylan and his team moved swiftly. They flanked the beast, using the debris for cover as they advanced. Zarek's diversion worked, the creature fully focused on him as it lashed out with terrifying force. Rylan's heart pounded in his chest, the weight of the moment pressing down on him. As they closed in, Rylan spotted the nexus, an exposed, pulsing mass located just beneath the beast's chest armor. He signaled to his team, and they unleashed a concentrated volley of fire. The beast staggered, its roar turning to one of pain and fury as the attacks found their mark. "Now!" Rylan shouted, his voice rising above the din of battle. Zarek, with a display of agility and strength, leapt onto the creature's back. He climbed with determined swiftness, reaching the vulnerable nexus. With a fierce cry, he drove his weapon into the pulsating core, discharging a powerful burst of energy. The beast convulsed violently, its roar echoing through the ruined city. For a moment, it seemed to hang in the balance, teetering between life and death. Then, with a final deafening crash, it collapsed. The ground shook with its fall, and a cloud of dust rose into the air, shrouding the scene in a ghostly pallor. As the dust settled, Rylan approached the fallen beast, his weapon still at the ready. He could hardly believe they had brought down such a monstrosity. Zarek climbed down from the carcass, his alien face streaked with grime and exhaustion. Rylan extended a hand. "You did it! We did it!" Zarek clasped his hand, his grip firm. "This is just the beginning. There are more out there, and we have to stop them all." Rylan nodded, the weight of their mission settling heavily on his shoulders. "We will. For every city, for every life lost, we'll make them pay." The crew regrouped, their spirits buoyed by the victory but tempered by the knowledge of the challenges ahead. They moved through the ruins, searching for survivors and gathering what supplies they could find. The battle for New Chicago was over, but the war for Earth had only just begun. As they prepared to move on to their next target, Rylan took one last look at the ruined city. He swore silently that they would not let the sacrifices made here be in vain. With Zarek by their side and a renewed sense of purpose, they set their sights on the horizon, ready to face whatever horrors lay ahead. The ruins of Los Angeles loomed before them, a haunting tableau of devastation and chaos. Once a bustling metropolis, it was now a landscape of twisted steel and crumbling concrete. The Tempest hovered above, its engines thrumming as Rielan and his crew prepared to disembark. The city's remnants were a stark reminder of the war beast's destructive power, and the team knew they were in for a brutal fight. Rielan, his face set in a mask of determination, led his team through the destroyed streets. The acrid smell of smoke and burning materials filled the air, mingling with the scent of the ocean. As they advanced cautiously, their senses on high alert, the ground suddenly shook beneath their feet. The familiar, dreaded sound of a war beast's approach echoed through the ruins. Emerging from behind a collapsed skyscraper, the creature revealed itself. This beast was even more grotesque than the last, its body a horrific amalgamation of metal tentacles and pulsating flesh. It moved with a terrifying, almost predatory grace, its multiple limbs tearing through the debris with ease. The beast's eyes, glowing a sickly green, scanned the area, locking onto the human intruders. "Positions!" Rielan commanded, his voice cutting through the rising tension. His crew scattered, taking cover behind the remnants of vehicles and chunks of fallen buildings. The beast let out a guttural roar, its tentacles flaring as it prepared to strike. As the team braced for the assault, a sudden, unexpected energy bolt struck the beast from the side. The creature reeled, turning its attention to the source of the attack. Out of the shadows stepped a figure, clad in sleek alien armor and wielding an advanced weapon. The figure's movements were fluid and precise, a stark contrast to the lumbering war beast. Rielan watched in surprise and suspicion as the figure approached, continuing to fire at the beast. "Who are you?" he shouted over the din of battle. The figure glanced at him, its face obscured by a helmet. "Name's Zarek," it said, the voice modulated but clearly urgent. "I'm here to help you take this thing down." Rielan's instincts urged caution, but the immediate threat of the war beast took precedence. "All right, Zarek, what's the plan?" Zarek didn't hesitate. "These war beasts have a neural nexus in their chests. It's their weak spot. We need to expose it and destroy it." Rielan nodded, rallying his team. "You heard him. Focus your fire on the chest. We need to create an opening." The battle intensified, energy blasts and plasma bolts flying through the air. Zarek moved with astonishing agility, drawing the beast's attacks and creating opportunities for Rielan and his team to strike. Despite their combined efforts, the creature's tentacles lashed out with relentless fury, forcing them to dodge and weave through the wreckage. In a coordinated effort, Rielan's team managed to distract the beast long enough for Zarek to close in. With a swift, powerful leap, Zarek landed on the creature's back, using his weapon to carve an opening in its armored hide. The war beast thrashed violently, but Zarek held firm, driving his weapon deeper into the nexus. "Now, Rielan, hit it with everything you've got!" Zarek shouted, his voice strained but resolute. Rielan signaled his team, and they unleashed a concentrated barrage of firepower. The combined assault struck the exposed nexus, and the beast let out an ear-splitting scream of agony. Its massive body convulsed, and with a final, shuddering crash, it collapsed to the ground, lifeless. The silence that followed was deafening. Rielan and his team lowered their weapons, their breaths coming in heavy, exhausted gasps. Zarek climbed down from the fallen beast, his alien armor scorched and battered but intact. Rielan approached him, extending a hand. "We couldn't have done that without you. Thank you." Zarek removed his helmet, revealing a face that was both alien and surprisingly human. "There's no need for thanks. We have a common enemy, and there are more of these beasts out there." Rielan nodded, a newfound respect for his alien ally forming within him. "Then we'll take them down together, one by one." As they regrouped and tended to their wounds, Rielan and Zarek shared a moment of quiet understanding. The alliance between them was forged in the fires of battle, and it would be tested in the trials to come. With renewed determination, they prepared to move on to the next target, knowing that the fight for Earth was far from over. The crew of the Tempest, now bolstered by Zarek's presence, set their sights on the horizon, ready to face whatever horrors awaited them. The war beasts were formidable, but united, they stood a chance to save their world from the brink of annihilation. Back aboard the Tempest, the atmosphere was charged with a mixture of anticipation and tension. The crew gathered in the war room, a spacious chamber dominated by a holographic map of Earth. Ryland stood at the head of the table, his face lined with determination and the fatigue of countless battles. Beside him was Zarek, their unlikely but indispensable ally. Ryland initiated the briefing. "We need a strategic plan to tackle the remaining beasts. Zarek, can you give us an overview of their locations and capabilities?" Zarek manipulated the holographic map, highlighting several areas around the globe where the war beasts were active. There are at least 10 more of these creatures, each one deployed in a major city or strategic location. Their neural nexus is their weak point, but each beast has unique defenses and attack patterns. The map zoomed in on one of the highlighted areas, revealing the massive form of a beast terrorizing Tokyo. Its design was more advanced, bristling with weapons and heavily armored. Ryland frowned, studying the projection. "These creatures are evolving. The Vargath must be controlling them remotely, adapting their tactics based on our responses." A murmur of agreement rippled through the room. Captain Alara, a seasoned officer with a fierce gaze, spoke up. "We can't just react to their moves. We need to be proactive, anticipate their next steps." Ryland nodded. "Exactly. We need to divide our forces, hit multiple targets simultaneously to spread them thin, but we can't afford to lose focus. Each mission must be executed with precision." He turned to Zarek. "What can you tell us about their communication and control systems? Any way we can disrupt their coordination?" Zarek's eyes narrowed thoughtfully. "The Vargath use a sophisticated network to control these beasts. If we can find and disable one of their command centers, it could give us a significant advantage. However, these centers are likely heavily guarded and well hidden." Ryland's mind raced, formulating a plan. "We need to locate these command centers and launch a coordinated strike. At the same time, we continue our direct assaults on the beasts. It's risky, but it's our best shot." The crew began discussing logistics, dividing tasks, and assigning teams. Ryland's leadership was evident, his voice calm but authoritative as he orchestrated their efforts. Each member brought their expertise to the table, contributing to a cohesive strategy. As the meeting progressed, Ryland couldn't help but feel a growing sense of camaraderie. Despite the dire circumstances, the crew's resolve was unwavering. They were united in their purpose, ready to fight for their home and each other. After hours of planning, the teams were finalized and the strategy set. Ryland dismissed the crew, allowing them some time to rest and prepare for the battles ahead. He lingered in the war room, staring at the holographic map and the blinking markers that represented the war beasts. Zarek approached him, his alien features softened by a rare moment of reflection. "You lead well, Ryland. Your people are fortunate to have you." Ryland glanced at Zarek, a faint smile tugging at his lips. "And we're lucky to have you, Zarek. Your knowledge and skills have been invaluable." Zarek's expression grew serious. "The Vargath are relentless. They won't stop until they've conquered or destroyed everything in their path. But together, we have a chance to turn the tide." Ryland placed a hand on Zarek's shoulder, a gesture of solidarity. "We will. For every city, for every life lost, we'll make them pay." As the Tempest prepared to launch its next missions, the crew found a moment of solace in their shared determination. They knew the battles ahead would be fierce, but they were ready to face them, side by side with their new ally. The war for Earth was far from over, but the seeds of victory had been sown. With courage and unity, they would fight on, driven by the hope of a future free from the terror of the war beasts. And as the Tempest soared into the skies, its crew stood resolute, prepared to reclaim their world from the brink of destruction. The Tempest sped towards its next destination, the smoldering ruins of Los Angeles now behind them. Their target was the war beast terrorizing the remains of Tokyo, a sprawling city now reduced to a battleground. Ryland stood on the bridge, his eyes locked on the horizon as the warship cut through the clouds. The air was thick with anticipation, every crew member acutely aware of the stakes. As they approached Tokyo, the devastation below came into view. Skyscrapers lay toppled, their skeletal frames jutting into the sky like the bones of some giant, long-dead creature. Fires burned unchecked, casting an eerie glow over the rubble. In the heart of the destruction, the war beast moved with terrifying purpose. This beast was larger and more heavily armored than any they had encountered before, its body bristling with advanced weaponry and defensive systems. Rylan gathered his team for a final briefing. The war room was a hive of activity, the holographic map displaying the beast's position and the surrounding terrain. "This isn't going to be like our previous engagements," Rylan began, his voice steady but intense. "This beast is more advanced, and it's in a heavily fortified area. We need to be smart, precise, and above all, we need to work together." Zarek stood beside him, his alien armor gleaming under the room's lights. "The neural nexus is still the key, but getting to it will be challenging. The beast's armor is thicker, and it has more offensive capabilities. We'll need to distract it and create multiple openings." Captain Alara, her expression grim and focused, spoke up. "We'll need to use the environment to our advantage. The ruins can provide cover and strategic points for ambushes. We can split into 2 teams, one to engage directly and draw its fire, the other to find and exploit its weak spots." Rylan nodded, impressed by Alara's tactical acumen. "Agreed. Zarek, you'll lead the direct assault team. Your agility and weaponry will be crucial in keeping the beast's attention. Ilara, you'll head the second team, focusing on hitting the Nexus. I'll coordinate between both teams and provide support where needed." With the plan set, the crew prepared for deployment. The Tempest hovered over a relatively intact section of the city, and the teams disembarked with practiced efficiency. As they moved through the ruins, the sounds of destruction grew louder, the beast's roars mingling with the collapse of buildings and the crackle of flames. Zarek's team made first contact, emerging from cover to launch a barrage of energy blasts at the beast. The creature responded with terrifying speed, its massive limbs swinging through the air and crashing into the ground with earth-shaking force. Zarek moved with incredible agility, dodging attacks and returning fire, his weapon discharging bolts of energy that struck the beast's armored hide. Meanwhile, Ilara's team navigated the debris, moving stealthily towards the beast's flank. They climbed over collapsed structures and through narrow passages, the ruins providing both cover and concealment. Ilara's keen eyes spotted a weak point in the beast's armor, a small section near its chest where the plating was thinner. She signaled her team to position themselves for a coordinated strike. Rylan, positioned at a vantage point, monitored both teams' progress. His heart pounded as he watched Zarek engage the beast, drawing its fury and keeping it distracted. Ilara's team moved into position, their weapons trained on the exposed area. "Now, Ilara!" Rylan shouted into his comm, his voice cutting through the chaos. Ilara and her team unleashed a precise volley of fire, their shots converging on the weak point. The beast let out a roar of pain, staggering under the concentrated assault. Seizing the opportunity, Zarek closed in, his weapon aimed directly at the Nexus. With a powerful leap, Zarek landed on the beast's back, driving his weapon into the exposed area. The creature thrashed wildly, but Zarek held firm, discharging a massive burst of energy into the Nexus. The beast convulsed, its roars reaching a fever pitch before finally collapsing in a heap of twisted metal and flesh. The battlefield fell silent. The only sounds the crackle of flames and the distant rumble of collapsing buildings. Rylan descended from his vantage point, his heart still racing from the intensity of the battle. He approached Zarek, who stood beside the fallen beast, his chest heaving with exertion. "You did it, Zarek," Rylan said, his voice filled with genuine admiration. "We did it." Zarek nodded, his alien features softening with relief. "It was a team effort. We couldn't have done it without everyone playing their part." Ilara joined them, her face streaked with sweat and grime but lit with a fierce pride. "One down, many more to go, but this proves we can win. We just need to stay smart and stay united." Rylan looked at his team, each member battered but unbroken. "This is just the beginning. We have a long fight ahead of us, but today we proved that we can stand against these monsters. Let's regroup and prepare for the next target. We won't stop until every last one of these beasts is destroyed." As the crew of the Tempest gathered their equipment and tended to their wounds, a sense of renewed determination filled the air. They had faced one of the most formidable war beasts yet and emerged victorious. The path ahead was still fraught with danger, but with each battle they grew stronger and more united. With Zarek by their side and a clear mission ahead, they were ready to take the fight to the enemy, determined to reclaim their world from the brink of annihilation. The war for Earth raged on, but hope was alive, burning brightly in the hearts of those who fought for its survival. The Tempest soared through the skies, its engines humming with a sense of purpose. After their victory in Tokyo, the crew was invigorated but also acutely aware of the challenges still ahead. Their next target was Berlin, another city under siege by the relentless war beasts. This time, however, their mission carried an added urgency. Intelligence suggested that Berlin housed one of the Vargath's command centers, a crucial hub for coordinating the beasts. Rylan gathered his team in the war room, the holographic map displaying Berlin's war-torn landscape. The city's iconic landmarks, now battered and broken, stood as a grim reminder of the devastation. "We have a unique opportunity here," Rylan began, his voice filled with a determined edge. "Taking down the beast is critical, but if we can locate and disable the command center, we could significantly weaken their operations." Zarek, standing beside him, added, "The command center will be heavily guarded, not just by the beast but by Vargath troops. We'll need to be prepared for a multi-front battle." Captain Alara, ever the strategist, outlined the plan. "We'll split into 3 teams. One team will engage the beast directly, drawing its attention away from the city center. The second team will search for and infiltrate the command center. The third team will provide support and be ready to assist wherever needed." Rylan nodded, approving the plan. "Zarek, you'll lead the direct assault team again. Ilara, you and I will head the infiltration team. Lieutenant Shaw, you'll command the support team." The crew dispersed to prepare, each member focused on their task. As they descended into Berlin, the scale of destruction was overwhelming. The war beast in this city was a colossal, multi-limbed titan, its body bristling with weaponry. It moved through the city with a destructive grace, leaving a path of ruin in its wake. Zarek's team engaged first, their weapons blazing as they attacked the beast from multiple angles. The creature responded with terrifying speed, its limbs smashing through buildings and streets in an attempt to crush its attackers. Zarek moved with incredible agility, his alien weaponry cutting through the air as he dodged and countered the beast's strikes. Meanwhile, Rylan and Alara's team slipped through the shadows, navigating the labyrinth of ruins toward the suspected location of the command center. The streets were eerily quiet, save for the distant sounds of battle. As they neared their target, they encountered pockets of Vargath troops, their alien forms moving with militaristic precision. Alara signaled for silence, her hand raised to halt the team. They watched as a patrol passed by, their alien language an unintelligible murmur. Once the path was clear, they moved swiftly, using the rubble for cover. The entrance to the command center was heavily fortified, but Alara's keen eyes spotted a service tunnel partially concealed by debris. "This way," she whispered, leading the team through the narrow passage. Inside, the tunnel was dark and cramped, but it provided the cover they needed to get closer to their objective. Outside, the battle raged on. Zarek's team fought valiantly, their efforts focused on keeping the beast occupied and away from the city center. The creature's roars echoed through the streets, a symphony of destruction. Zarek knew they had to hold the line, buying Rylan and Alara the time they needed. Rylan's team emerged from the tunnel into the heart of the command center. The room was filled with Vargath soldiers and advanced technology, screens displaying live feeds of the war beast's actions across the globe. Alara pointed to a central console, its interface glowing with alien symbols. "That's our target. We need to disable it." Rylan and Alara moved swiftly, taking out the guards with silent precision. As they reached the console, Rylan began working on the controls, using a combination of intuition and Zarek's earlier instructions to navigate the alien system. "Almost there," Rylan muttered, his fingers flying over the interface. Suddenly, alarms blared, and the room filled with red light. The Vargath soldiers reacted instantly, weapons drawn as they converged on Rylan's position. Alara and the team formed a defensive perimeter, engaging the Vargath in a fierce firefight. Blaster fire filled the room, the air thick with smoke and the acrid scent of burning circuitry. Rylan continued to work, ignoring the chaos around him as he input the final commands. got it! Reland shouted, the console's lights flickering as the system shut down. Instantly, the screens went dark, and the room's hum of energy ceased. The command center was offline. Outside, the impact was immediate. The war beast, previously coordinated and deadly, began to falter. Its movements became erratic, its attacks less focused. Zarek seized the opportunity, directing his team to target the now exposed weak points. With a combined effort, they launched a final assault. The beast, unable to withstand the concentrated fire, let out a final ear-splitting roar before collapsing. The ground shook with its fall, and a stunned silence followed as the crew processed their victory. Back in the command center, the remaining Vargath soldiers were quickly subdued. Ilara approached Reland, her expression a mixture of relief and triumph. "We did it! The command center is down and the beast is finished!" Ryland nodded, wiping sweat from his brow. "This is a turning point. With the command center offline, their coordination is crippled. We have a real chance now." As they regrouped and tended to their wounds, a sense of cautious optimism filled the air. They had struck a significant blow against the Vargath, and the tide of the war seemed to be shifting in their favor. But the battle was far from over. Ryland looked at his team, each member worn but resolute. "This is just the beginning. We need to keep pushing, keep fighting. For every city, for every life lost, we'll make them pay." With their spirits bolstered by the victory, the crew of the Tempest prepared for the next phase of their mission. The war for Earth was still raging, but they had proven that they could stand against the Vargath. United and determined, they would fight on, driven by the hope of a future free from the terror of the war beasts. The Tempest roared through the skies towards its final destination, New York City. The crew knew this would be the most challenging mission yet. Intelligence had confirmed that the largest and most formidable war beast was wreaking havoc in the city. It was a colossal monstrosity, heavily armed and armored, and the last major threat they needed to neutralize. Ryland stood on the bridge, his gaze fixed on the holographic map displaying New York's ravaged landscape. The iconic skyline, now a ruin of twisted metal and broken glass, was a stark reminder of the devastation. The crew was ready, their spirits high after their recent successes, but tempered by the gravity of the task ahead. Ryland gathered his team for a final briefing. "This is it, our last major target. This beast is the largest we've encountered, and it will be heavily defended. We need to approach this with everything we've got." Zarek, his alien features set in a determined expression, spoke up. "The neural nexus will be heavily protected. We'll need to coordinate our attacks perfectly to create an opening. This beast is not just stronger, it's smarter, and it will adapt quickly." Captain Ilara, her eyes sharp and focused, added, "We should expect a ground presence of Vargath soldiers as well. They'll be guarding the beast and possibly a secondary command center. We'll need to split our forces again. One team to handle the ground troops, and the other to take down the beast." Ryland nodded, his mind racing with strategies. "I'll lead the team targeting the beast. Zarek, you'll handle the ground forces. Ilara, coordinate from the Tempest and provide aerial support. Lieutenant Shaw, you'll lead the insertion team if there's a secondary command center." The crew prepared in silence, each member lost in their thoughts. They knew the risks, the sacrifices that might be necessary, but they also knew what was at stake. As they approached New York, the sight of the war beast was overwhelming. It towered over the ruins, a terrifying blend of organic and mechanical parts, its multiple limbs armed with an array of deadly weapons. The beast moved with a terrifying grace, each step sending shockwaves through the ground. The Tempest landed on the outskirts of the city, and the teams disembarked quickly. Ryland led his team towards the beast, their movements precise and coordinated. Zarek's team split off, engaging the Vargath soldiers that swarmed the streets. The air was thick with the sounds of battle, explosions, gunfire, and the beast's ear-splitting roars. Ryland's team took up positions around the beast, using the ruins for cover. They opened fire, their weapons targeting the creature's limbs to slow its movements. The beast retaliated with terrifying force, its massive limbs smashing through buildings and vehicles with ease. "Keep moving! We need to keep it off balance!" Ryland shouted, his voice barely audible over the din of battle. His team moved with practiced precision, their coordinated attacks creating small but crucial openings. Zarek and his team fought fiercely against the Vargath soldiers. The alien warriors were relentless, but Zarek's tactical acumen and the team's determination began to turn the tide. They pushed forward, drawing closer to the suspected location of the secondary command center. As Ryland's team continued their assault, he noticed a pattern in the beast's movements. It favored its right side, where the armor was slightly damaged. "Focus on the right side! We need to exploit that weakness!" The team redoubled their efforts, their concentrated fire finally breaching the beast's armor. Ryland saw his chance. "Cover me!" he shouted, breaking from cover and sprinting towards the beast. He dodged the debris and the beast's thrashing limbs, his focus entirely on the exposed neural nexus. With a final, desperate leap, Ryland reached the creature's chest. He planted a high-powered explosive charge directly onto the nexus and jumped clear, rolling to safety as the charge detonated. The explosion was deafening, and the beast let out a final, agonized roar before collapsing to the ground, its massive form twitching before falling still. The ground shook with the impact, and a stunned silence followed. The war beast was down. Ryland's team regrouped, their faces showing a mix of exhaustion and relief. Meanwhile, Zarek's team breached the secondary command center, neutralizing the remaining Vargath soldiers and disabling their control systems. The coordinated effort had paid off. The beast and its defenders were defeated. Ryland looked around at his team, each member battered but victorious. He raised his voice, filled with pride and determination. "We did it. We've taken down their last major weapon, but this isn't over. We need to secure the area and ensure the Vargath can't regroup." Ilara's voice came through the comms, filled with the same determination. "The Tempest will provide overwatch. We'll keep an eye out for any remaining threats and coordinate the cleanup." As they secured the area and began to assess the damage, a sense of accomplishment filled the air. They had faced the worst the Vargath could throw at them and emerged victorious. But Ryland knew this was just one battle in a larger war. He turned to Zarek, who approached, his alien face set in a grim but satisfied expression. "This was a critical victory. We've crippled their operations and taken down their last major weapon. But the Vargath won't give up easily." Ryland nodded, his resolve unwavering. "Then we won't either. We'll keep fighting, keep pushing until we've driven them off our planet for good." With the beast defeated and the command center disabled, the crew of the Tempest regrouped and prepared for the next phase of their mission. The war for Earth was still raging, but with each victory they moved closer to reclaiming their world from the brink of destruction. Together, united by their shared determination and strengthened by their successes, they would continue to fight. The battle for New York was a turning point, a symbol of their resilience and their refusal to surrender. And as the Tempest soared into the skies once more, the crew stood ready for whatever challenges lay ahead, driven by the hope of a future free from the terror of the war beasts. The battlefield that was once New York City lay in eerie silence. The massive form of the defeated war beast sprawled amidst the ruins. The Tempest hovered above, its engines a low hum against the backdrop of a city that had seen too much destruction. Ryland Creed stood with his crew, the weight of their victory mingling with the sobering reality of what had been lost. As the smoke began to clear, survivors emerged from their hiding places. Civilians, gaunt and wary, their faces etched with both fear and hope, cautiously approached the crew of the Tempest. Ryland signaled his team to stand down, their weapons lowered but still ready. They had won a crucial battle, but the war was far from over. Zarek, ever vigilant, scanned the horizon. His alien features were a mask of both relief and resolve. "We've struck a significant blow, but the Vargath won't retreat easily. They'll regroup, and we must be ready." Ryland nodded, his eyes surveying the devastated landscape. "We need to secure the area, tend to the wounded, and start rebuilding. The people here need to see that we're not just fighting the enemy, but also restoring their world." Captain Ilara, her face streaked with grime and exhaustion, approached. "We've located several Vargath supply caches in the area. They contain medical supplies, food, and equipment. We can use these to help the survivors and fortify our position." Ryland's expression softened slightly, a rare moment of respite in the midst of chaos. "Good work, Ilara. Organize the distribution of supplies. Let's show the people that we're here for them." As the crew dispersed to carry out their tasks, Rylan and Zarek walked through the ruins, their steps heavy with the weight of their mission. They came across a group of children, huddled together and clutching each other in fear. Rylan knelt down, offering them a reassuring smile. "It's okay now. You're safe. We're here to help." The children, hesitant at first, slowly reached out, their eyes filled with a mix of gratitude and uncertainty. Zarek watched silently, his alien gaze taking in the scene. "They've seen too much," he murmured, a note of sorrow in his voice. Rylan stood, his resolve hardening. "We'll give them a future worth fighting for, a world where they can grow up without fear." As the day wore on, the crew worked tirelessly. They set up medical stations, distributed food, and helped clear the rubble. The survivors, inspired by their efforts, began to assist, their spirits lifting with each act of kindness and solidarity. The sense of community, though fragile, began to take root amidst the ruins. In the evening, the crew gathered in a makeshift command center, a partially intact building that had been repurposed for their operations. The room was filled with maps, communication equipment, and the hum of activity. Rylan addressed the assembled team, his voice steady but carrying the weight of their collective experiences. "We've accomplished a great deal today," he began, "but this is just the start. The Vargath will come back and we need to be ready. We have to fortify our positions, establish communication with other resistance groups, and continue to support the civilians." Zarek stepped forward, his voice resonating with determination. "We also need to find and neutralize any remaining Vargath forces in the area. They will try to undermine our efforts and sow chaos. We must remain vigilant." Ilara, ever the strategist, outlined their next steps. "We'll set up patrols and checkpoints. Our scouts will gather intelligence on any Vargath movements, and will establish a secure perimeter around our base of operations." Rylan nodded, his confidence in his team unwavering. "Let's get to it. We have a lot of work ahead, but we've proven that we can stand against the Vargath. Together, we'll reclaim our world." As the crew dispersed to carry out their assignments, Rylan took a moment to reflect. The journey ahead would be arduous, filled with dangers and uncertainties. But the victories they had achieved, the bonds they had forged, gave him hope. Walking outside, he found Zarek gazing at the night sky, the stars twinkling above the war-torn city. "Do you think we can truly win this?" Rylan asked, his voice tinged with both hope and doubt. Zarek turned to him, his expression thoughtful. "Victory is not just in the battles we win, but in the hope we inspire. As long as we stand together, we have a chance." Rylan smiled, a sense of calm washing over him. "Then let's make sure we inspire that hope. For every city, for every life, we'll fight on." With renewed determination, they turned back to their duties, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. The war for Earth was far from over, but united by their common cause and driven by the hope of a brighter future, they were prepared to reclaim their world from the brink of destruction.